Hello, and welcome to episode 116 of Design Curious Podcast. I'm your host and mentor, Rebecca Ward. I hope you are enjoying your week as you're getting ready for Thanksgiving. And we have a great episode for you today with Michelle Williams of Scarlet Thread Consulting and Metrik Solutions. She is also podcast host for the Profit is a Choice podcast. You're definitely going to want to check that out. Let me tell you a little bit more about Michelle. Michelle Williams is the dynamic owner of Scarlet Thread Consulting and Metrik Solutions, two companies focused on empowering creative professionals to own the financials of their business. With an eye for detail and a passion for innovation, Michelle has carved a niche in providing strategic business coaching and financial analytics to help business owners navigate the complexities of entrepreneurship. At Scarlet Thread Consulting, Michelle utilizes her extensive experience in finance and business management to offer tailored coaching and mentoring services. She is dedicated to helping her clients achieve financial clarity and operational efficiency, enabling them to make informed decisions that drive their business forward. Through Metrik Solutions, Michelle offers a unique blend of technology and consulting, providing cutting-edge software solutions designed specifically for the owners of small business. Her expertise in financial metrics and data analysis empowers her clients to optimize their pricing strategies and enhance profitability. Michelle's commitment to excellence and her unwavering support for her clients have established her as a trusted advisor and thought leader in the design community. Her work not only transforms businesses, but also inspires creativity and growth, making her an invaluable asset to the industry. I know you're going to love what she has to say. She talks fast. She has a lot of great vocabulary. So get your coffee ready and let's listen in to what Michelle has to say. You're now listening to Design Curious, a place where you, creative one, are here to learn about what it really is like to be an interior designer. And I'm your host and mentor, Rebecca Ward. If you're worried about how to succeed in a creative career, if you're ready to learn your next steps to become an interior designer, and if you want the satisfaction of doing something you love every day, you are in the right place. Grab a coffee, a notebook, and let's dig into today's episode. Hi, Michelle. Welcome to Design Curious Podcast.
Hi, Rebecca. Thanks so much for having me.
Of course. I know. I had to have you on because you are just a wealth of knowledge with finances, and I'm sure there's designers like me out there who aren't great at the numbers. It doesn't come naturally. It's not my favorite thing to look at, but I know how helpful it is. So we're going to get into it today with your expertise. Let's start by telling our audience exactly what your business is and your consulting and how you help interior designers.
Sure. So I have two companies, and in both of those, the aim is to put the power of the financials back into the hands of the business owner. So I do that through my coaching program and my one-on-one coaching sessions, and that is through Scarlet Thread Consulting. And then I also run my podcast, Profit is a Choice, through that company. And then through my work of coaching, consulting with designers, I started offering, been doing it since 2009-10, a lot of spreadsheets upon spreadsheets so that they could manage the financial health of their companies. And I had that built into a dashboard that any small business can use. When I say small business, most of them are probably 5-7 million and below. And any of them can use that dashboard to help manage the financials and the modeling of the financial in their company. So
with Scarlet Thread Consulting, you're helping the business owner understand their numbers and learn how to do analysis on their own, kind of coaching them to get up to speed, right? And then with Metrik, you're kind of going a step farther and actually doing some more in-depth analysis. And tell me a little bit more about that, like what exactly they're doing with Metrik.
So starting at the beginning, the way that it all started, to be honest, Rebecca, was me teaching. So I started by teaching classes back in 2009, I think was my first official big class where I started teaching how to manage your numbers, how to price your work, I have a trademarked course called Pricing Without Emotion. So the whole thing was about how do you really price, not just here's a markup and here's an hourly rate, but what do these numbers represent? What do they need to do in the company so that if you need to change your pricing, update your pricing, you know what it is you're doing. Well, then I quickly realized people didn't know how to read all the financial statements. So they could get their pricing right, but then what happens? So then I created a class called Understanding Your Financials. And in that class, it's teaching about here's the profit and loss, and here's what it does. Here's the balance sheet. Here's what it does. Here's how to read a cash flow document. Here's how to do year-over-year comparisons, like all the things that you need to do so that you can start to understand what all those pricing numbers are telling you and how it's shaking out in the management. Then I developed a course called Master Your Profit, because now when you're becoming profitable, how do I tell net profit where to go? How do I give it a job to do? And I'm also Profit First certified. So it starts with pricing correctly so that you have money to manage, and then managing that money effectively so that you have profit, and then how to take that profit and allocate it, not only so that you can benefit as the owner of the business, but so that your company can be sustainable and you can build it and grow, and then also take care of your employees really well. Well, through that process, I started realizing that there was a deep need for numbers presented in a way that either the analysis or that it prompted you to know how and what to analyze, because people are getting P&Ls and balance sheets every month if they've got a great bookkeeper, but they don't know what to do with it. They don't know what the numbers mean. They don't know how to put them together. And when they try to put them together to make a decision, it's taking forever, and they're building spreadsheet after spreadsheet after spreadsheet to kind of compile this data and correlate this data. Well, what if we just went ahead and compiled and correlated the data for you? And so that's how Metrik was actually born. Was I was just building spreadsheet after spreadsheet after spreadsheet. So now what Metrik does, so where there's an education and a coaching arm, that's what Scarlet Thread was created for and exists for, is to coach and to educate and to cheer you on. Metrik is actually a standalone SaaS-based product that is a subscription model that anybody can subscribe to. You can input your financial data, whether it's QuickBooks or Studio Designer, or manually you're keeping up with all your numbers in Excel, but you want to know how they're going to play out. You can put in the numbers that would be representative of a profit and loss and a balance sheet. And then we have modeling tools. Like you can model. Yesterday, I did an example within Metrik for the members of, I want to hire a new employee. What will that look like? Well, we started immediately at billable capacity. How much would we expect this new employee to bill? Because that's where it's going to start. How much money are they going to make for me? All right, here's how much money they're going to make for me. How much money am I going to pay them? What's the difference between what I'm going to pay them and how much they're going to make for me? Now, what is the cost for me to have an employee outside of what I pay them? Let's subtract that from what they're going to make for me. So then you're constantly seeing what is the delta or the difference between what it's going to take for me to hire them and get them on board, and how much they have the ability to earn over a time span, to see when it's going to take, when it's the right time, and how much can they pay for themselves. We even have a modeling tool that says if I'm paying them $30 an hour and they're billing out 20 hours or 40 hours a week, or they're working 40 hours a week, let me back up. I'm paying them $30 an hour. I'm paying them $4 in employee labor burden, the cost to have them. And they're working 40 hours a week. How many hours at $150 an hour billable rate do they have to work a week to pay for them to just be there? So anything after that is gravy for me, right?
Yeah.
So then, in other words, if I'm planning for them to bill 10 hours a week, like that's the way I've structured their job, but it takes 9 hours just to pay for them to be there, they're not making me any money. They're costing me money.
Right. Yeah.
But if it takes 9 hours to pay for them, and I'm expecting them to work and bill 20 hours a week, which is half of their time, which is very normal, then 10 hours or 11 hours goes just to company profit, gross profit, so that I can cover all the company expenses and profit in the company, because the first part is just to cover them and that's done. So then I can start to make smart decisions on how much I pay them, how much they need to bill out and at what rate. and how it fits into the overhead and everything in the company. So now I can go back and update my budgets. I can go back and update my financial goals. So now I know here's the new sales goal because here's a new expense goal. And here's what their billable rate goal is for hours and amount. Now I can walk into it with the plan instead of I'm going to hire them and I sure hope it works out.
Right. Which is exactly what I did starting out. I mean, what a useful tool to have that knowledge walking into it
We
and
did it in
say,
minutes,
yeah, wow,
right?
that's amazing. I think everyone could benefit from that because, like I said, when I first did my first hire, I'm like, well, I know I'm charging more than what I'm paying her, so it's gonna wash out somewhere. But like,
But where's it going to wash
I
out,
just had
right? At
my
what
fingers
point?
crossed, really.
Yeah. And we even calculate in there, for example, let's say that the first 3 months that you hire somebody is an onboarding or ramping up, and you're not really expecting
Yeah,
them. We're just not putting that into the calculation, which
yeah.
means they've got to make up for it, on the back end.
Hmm.
We talked about doing it in reverse. What if you need to fire somebody? All right, well, I can take this expense out. Well, I'm going to reduce this sales amount that maybe if they're responsible for selling,
Hmm.
or I'm going to take the expense out, but we're still going to be able to manage the work because they maybe weren't a producer anyway. So you have ways to go back and forth to make the numbers work or to see where they don't work for the scenarios and the strategies that you are trying to accomplish. Another good one we have in there is startup cost, something simple like startup cost.
Yeah.
And what's so interesting about that is most people might say, well, I've already started my business. Yeah, but we're constantly offering new products or new services or a new arm of our business. What if we could sit down and go, this is what I think it's going to really take to start, and this is how long it's going to take to pay that back. Here's my break even. We have a break even analysis. Now you can start to go, this is how much I've invested. When am I going to break even?
Mm-hmm.
Even income planning, that's another big one. How much money do I think I'm going to bring in between now and the end of the year? Here are the projects that I have, and here's what I'm expecting to come in over here. Now I kind of know what that cash chunk is going to look like for new work coming in. So there's just a lot of different models in there for the things that I was already helping all of my clients figure out over and over and over with a bunch of disparate kind of spreadsheets. But it's the information, Rebecca, that almost any business needs as it's growing. You might not need it all at once, right? So some listeners may be going, oh my gosh, that's all way too much. And it doesn't help that I speak fast. So I know it's a lot. But as we grow up in business, some of these things, we're either doing them on a gut feeling or we're going to make these decisions with empirical data. And my belief is that the best decisions are made with a little bit of both.
Mhm.
You've got your gut feeling and you have the empirical data to back it up,
Mm.
right? Because when they
Yeah.
are totally talking in different directions, that's kind of like your head going in one way and your heart going in another. We start to feel very unsettled. We then are always second and third guessing everything we do. But when our head and our hearts align, right, that logic and emotional piece start align, that here we've got data, logic, and okay, it feels good to me, heart. When those are centered and when those are aligned, we don't tend to second guess ourselves, and our confidence goes way up. But
Hmm.
we are asking ourselves in business, look, I've done it myself. Asked myself in business to make a decision without all the data that I needed to make the decision, and then told myself to feel good about the decision, right? Like almost pushing down that response that says, but what if I was pushing it down and telling it to be quiet when I should have been curious and listened
Mm.
to it and gone and got the data.
Okay. So then this is an analysis that you had to do as you were creating Metrik business as like another business arm for
Yes,
you because you were working full time doing the consulting, right? And then you
correct.
had to start another business. So you had to go
Correct.
through all of this analysis
And
on,
a tech business at that, which is very expensive. They
yeah.
are very, very expensive. Yes. Yeah. So
Wow.
even my podcast, Rebecca, I did a whole business model around because as you know, I mean, I don't take on mine currently, I don't have vendors and sponsors.
Right.
I like to
Same.
keep it as a part of what I do, which then means that the cost have to be borne by my company or me
Hmm.
personally, right?
Right.
And there is a cost to it. It's the marketing arm of my firm. And so for me, I'm willing to bear the marketing cost because that's where I'm putting my dollars to have my voice heard, my brand heard, and people to understand. But I went into it and wrote a whole business plan for my podcast. Like, who am I talking to? Why am I talking to them? What do I hope that they get out of it? What am I willing to put into the editing and the post production and all of the support that goes around getting the word out and building the graphics and putting it out? I use Libsyn, putting it out there and getting it on all the podcast catchers. And there is a cost involved in the production of the whole thing. I'm willing to pay that, but what do I need the payoff of that to be? Like, if people start saying, we don't listen, or I've never heard of you, or I don't know how I got to you, then I'm going to start wondering, is everything that I'm putting out, what is the return on that investment? And so I went very much into, what is the brand? How consistent can I be? How can I show up? How do I want to be perceived? The whole thing that you would do for your design firm, I did the whole thing for the podcast. And then I did it all over again for Metrik. And it's kept me very focused on what I'm trying to do. Like, I'm even having conversations right now internally. What do we want it to look like next year? Do we want to go in a different direction? Do we want the same focus? How can we capture the information and put it out in a way that people can absorb? Same thing we're doing in our design business.
Yeah. Well, and all that hard work pays off, obviously, because your podcast has been around. I mean, most podcasts, they say don't last more than 20 episodes. So
yeah.
So it's a testament to doing the legwork ahead of time. And then that translates, of course, to your other businesses. So yeah. So then we are approaching your end. You mentioned how you like to analyze like where you want to go next year. What are some things that every business owner and designer should be out there looking at in their business financials right now to see as they start to forecast for 25?
That's a great question. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to even take a step back from that, Rebecca, and say, before we actually can go in and do a lot of heavy lifting on our finances, I mean, it's like going to the doctor and getting blood work, right? The blood work is give me all your financials because I can tell what's happening. But first we have to take a step back and say, what is the strategy of the company? What is the company trying to do and attain? That becomes, as I say, the bar in the closet that we're going to hang the clothes on, right? That becomes the solid piece. So what is that solid piece? Because I can look at your financials and draw conclusions based on numbers and percentages, but that's not the whole story. The truth is, how do those numbers and percentages align with what you're trying to attain? That's the piece that we always start with, is what is the strategy? What were the goals? What was the achievement points? Once we've identified the achievement points, now let's look at the numbers and see how they align to what it was you were trying to achieve. If you said to me, Michelle, I was trying to make $100,000 this year in revenue, and I'm looking at financials that say 97,000, I'm going to say, oh my gosh, you're practically there. We're going to count that as a win because nothing is meant to be exact. Yeah. That's amazing. If you said to me, Michelle, I am trying to pay 3 people in this company a full-time salary, and we made $97,000 this year in revenue, I'm going to say that is not an alignment. You can't pay 3 people a great salary if all you brought in was 97,000 and we've still got to take money out for cost of goods and the running of the company. Yeah. It's not possible. So you can see, if I'm looking at financials in isolation, they tell me one thing, but when I can look at them attached to the strategy or the plan that was used to create them, I've got a different story now. So I guess the big thing I would encourage people to do is to sit down and say, what were you trying to attain? What were your goals? Even if you're writing them down on the back end. Like, for some people, it could be, I'm just trying to start my business and survive. That's the best I got. Okay, fine. Write that down. I'm just trying to prove the concept that I can do design. What is it that's going to prove it for you? Is it the first dollar? Is it making a net profit? Like, what is that proof, right? So digging in, being curious with yourself, what were you trying to do this year? And then looking at the numbers as they compare and align with the goal of what you were trying to accomplish.
Yeah. And so that goal is like the strategic plan that they have in their
Correct.
business, and you're making sure the financial plan fits into that.
Correct.
And I feel like understanding what your strategic plan is can be a big hurdle. And is that some of the coaching that you're helping your clients work through in Scarlet Thread? Like coming, like just putting a definition to that, the strategic plan,
Yeah.
because it's daunting, I think, for some people to say, like, okay, I gotta sit down and write my strategic plan, and then
I know. And they're like, I don't even know where to start and what to do.
yeah,
I have a couple of blogs and a couple of podcasts on strategic plan. So if anybody
yeah,
goes over there, you're certainly welcome to check. In a nutshell, Rebecca, what I found was people were coming to work with me and they were telling me, this is what I want, but it wasn't a full thought out plan. It was, I want to sell X number. I want to make this amount. I want to hire 3 people. They were telling me what I would consider more of maybe goals than they were telling me what the strategic plan was. And so I kept saying, that's fine. You can do that this year, but what about next year? I hadn't thought about that. They'd not thought into the future to see where any of this was taking them. It was almost like by the seat of their pants in the moment making decisions, which is why everything felt so shaky under them because it wasn't solid. Honestly, that's the way I built my first business. And that's
mm,
why I realized it wasn't working for me. My
mm,
first business was built by accident because somebody rang my doorbell and asked me to do something for them that I'd done in my own home. And all of a sudden, I have a business. And I did that for the first couple of years and then realized I wasn't making any money and had
mm,
all kinds of challenges and boundaries were being stepped all over. And I had to take a big step back and start to organize that. And then I bought a company. We had a very strategic plan. Then I started this company, had a plan, and I've done it every time after. And what the strategic plan does, first, it identifies the foundation of the company. Okay. Why is the company here? I will tell you, I don't care. I'm not looking at building a big business plan or strategic plan that we're taking to the bank to get money. I'm talking about one that just kind of keeps me as this owner grounded so that when opportunities come up, I have a filter with which to look at those opportunities to determine, is that mine? Or is that for later? Do I need to do it now? It's really just trying to help me make decisions and not get distracted with all the beautiful things out there that are flickering all around me, right? That squirrel mentality. And so what it does is it helps you just kind of encapsulate, this is my mission, my vision, my why, the values and the culture that the company is built on. Here's what we are here to do, and here's how we're here to do it. And even as far as, and here's the ideal client we want to serve. So now, if somebody were to peek into Rebecca's company, we could see who you are, what you do, what you stand for, and how you do it.
mm,
This is what we should expect when Rebecca comes into our orbit and we start hanging out together. This is what we're getting. Okay. Then what it does, strategic means that it's kind of visionary. You're looking usually in the future. Some are 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. I would say most of us are going to be in a 3 year. Some
mhm,
go to 5. Rarely do I see 10, but maybe once in a while. What you're then doing is saying, in 3 years, this is where I hope to be. And so if I'm going to be here in year 3, then I need to be here in year 2, and I really 1 year out. Now, what is it that I need to do to get from where I am now to year 1? What needs to happen to get from year 1 to year 2? And when you do that, you're going to look at it, your company, in a couple of ways. You're going to look at it financially, you're going to look at it operationally, and you're going to look at it from a sales perspective. So, what do I need to sell? How do I need to operate? And what is the money that needs to result? If you can look at it from those kinds of the people, the processes, and the profitability, like who are the people that I need, that's part of the organization. So if you're looking at all of that, then you know, here's where we are, here's how what we were built to do, here's how we're going to show up in the world. This is what matters to us. This is what we value. And in 1 year, this is where we want the business to be. Now, I can align a financial plan, a marketing plan, an organizational plan, an HR plan around that 1 year.
mm,
And then at the end of that 1 year, the goal is in that first year to set ourselves up for a good starting point for year 2. That's why in my podcast, I talk about it all the time. And almost every year, I bring some version of it back out. It's called End the Year Well. Because if we end this year well, we put ourselves in a position to start next year well. If
mhm,
you end this year scrambling and you end this year, I didn't know what I was doing, I don't know where I am, I don't know how to get to the next place, then we're bringing all of that negative energy, all of that I feel behind. We're bringing all of that into the new year. It's like taking all the junk from one house and moving it to the next, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so the more that we can be kind to ourselves on this is what it would mean to end the year well, I would feel success or complete or okay if we could get these three things done by the end of the year. I can get my, sympathetic nervous system, parasympathetic, all of it could be calm. My
Yeah.
cortisol can be low, and I can enjoy the holidays and I can move into the new year with ease. If we can identify that and work towards that, then we set ourselves up in a great place for that next year strategically to say, now, what do I need to do first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, so that by the end of fourth quarter, I can be where I wanted to be. That's really all that it is. Hear this. Designers do this all day, every day when they're planning their projects for their clients. They are saying, this is the end game. We're going to get there. The timeline can vary 1 month, 3 months, 3 years. I got some of my designers that are doing 3-year builds.
Yeah.
This is where we need to be at the end of year 3 in this build. That means we have to have these selections done by this point. We need to have installed by this point. We need to have sign-offs by this point, sign contracts. They're backing it up to say, whatever that time frame is, here's what happens. It's just the work we do when we go to college. Randomly take a bunch of crap. I mean, some people may do that. I'm sure their parents don't love it. We go to college, we declare a major, we say, here's where we need to be at the end of year 4 or year 5, based on how long it is. And we have a curriculum. That is the strategic plan to get through all of the courses that are necessary to graduate with a degree. It's the same thing. We've done it over and over and over, but somehow we move into business. We let all of that go and think it's going to reduce our creativity, when really just write down, how are we going to get, what are some of the first steps to get to where we want to go? And truly, years 2, 3, and 4, those get fuzzier. I remember when I first started college as a freshman, I wasn't thinking about that senior year. I was thinking about freshman year. So think about freshman year the heaviest, knowing that in 4 years you can celebrate that you're a senior.
What a great way to illustrate that. I hadn't thought about that before, because it is what we do with our design projects. We see the finish and then we work backwards from there.
Yes.
And like you said, we've done this with other things in our life. So it's so surprising that when it comes to business, we don't apply the same method.
I think we've put a title on it that feels big and bold and scary, or we've created it in such a way that we think we got to be able to take it to the bank to get funding. It's not, I'm not talking about that kind of plan. I even jokingly call it the back of napkin plan. I'm saying it's kind of it's the GPS system for the next 1 year to help you get to where you think you want to get. And just knowing, because look, opportunities come up all the time, and we get the chance to say, that's a great opportunity for where I'm going, or that opportunity is going to take me off my path. And so it's knowing what your path is so that you know if it's a good shortcut, or even if it's a detour, it's one that'll get you maybe further up somewhere else. Or is it going to totally take you down a completely different track to have you be known for something you don't want to be known for? It's like when people call you and ask you, hey, do you design ABC campers? And you're like, actually, I only do whole house builds ground up. Well, we really want our camper or our boat redesigned. And you're like, but I don't do boat redesign, right? But you get a chance to answer that based on the strategy of where you want to go and what you want to do.
Okay. Really good.
So are you thinking about writing one?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it makes the most sense. The
truth is you probably have a lot of the information. We think about it. We just don't always have it written down in a way that we can go back and look at. I had to do that when I realized my business was failing. Back in 2002, 2003, I realized that I was losing money every year to do something that I loved for rich people. That's the truth. And I had been in business, I had worked in software, I had run teams, and it hit me, if I don't get this act together that I'm doing, what I am doing and I'm going to put in air quotes for those listening, what I'm doing as a business is looking more like a jobby, right? A mixture of a job and a hobby. It's not looking like a business. And so what is it that businesses do that are successful? Is they know who they are. They've got the mission, the vision, the values, the culture. They know who they're serving, how they're serving them, and what they're going to do to attain the next set of goals. That's what makes them accomplished. And then I started putting that in back in 2003. I started building that into my company. In other words, I'm not just doing this for fun. I'm doing this expecting the business to do something for me and realizing I wasn't going out to get money. But by writing it down, oh my gosh, Rebecca, then when people ask me to do things, I could say our company policy is, even if I was the only hour in the
Yes.
company policy is, or the company doesn't provide that service. Like I could lean on the identity of the company instead of just saying, oh, I don't know. I don't know that I really want to do that. And then getting into one of those awkward conversations. So it actually gave me such a backbone and such confidence to just write down. And I must say this, I think it can be a little scary because we're putting our dreams and desires on paper.
Yeah.
But I will tell you, they say that it's like you're 94% more likely to attain a goal that is written down, that is shared with somebody, and that you hold yourself accountable to. 94%. And so if we really want to be successful, we've got to own our own dreams, own our goals, write them down, create a path and a plan that leads us towards success, and then actually do it. And that's what we do in my coaching. So that was where you kind of had started the whole conversation. in my coaching program, my Designer's Inner Circle, and any of my strategic coaching, we're giving you templates for this, we're giving you accountability sheets. We're working on OKRs, which are objectives and key results, or goals. We can use that word, SMART goals. We're setting KPIs, which are just what are the indicators we're going to look at. Think about sitting in a car seat. Before you drive, we crank the car. We're usually looking, is any light flashing at me that I've got to do something with? Tire pressure, maybe on a longer trip, we're looking at the gas, tank. We're looking at all these, the oil pressure. We're looking at the temperature gauge or whatever. We're just kind of taking an assessment. We're not opening the hood and looking all around and peeking in the little place that we put the gas. We're not doing that. We're looking at a dashboard. And that's then what Metrik does, right? It gives you those quick glimpses in, but the strategy's been created somewhere else.
Yeah, that's really great because I think I probably have all of these elements in my business already. But like I said before, like putting that into a structured document is probably what is lacking because that structure is where I personally lack. And so that's where it's great to have people like you to come alongside and say like, hey, here's the template or here's the format. Probably have all these pieces and then here's how we put together. And this is your strategic plan.
That's right. And then helping you set a plan to go back once a quarter and reviewing it to make sure that you are getting where, and then that's where the Asanas and the Mondays and the Trellos and the base camps and all those kinds of project management tools, that's where they come in, is in the day-to-day. Rebecca, I did this a few years ago, back in 2019, the book Atomic Habits. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
Yes.
Okay. Love that book. And it has just really been weighing on me again when I'm thinking about my own strategic plan. And I'm thinking about my personal life strategic plan. Like I'm in the phase of life. I'm not just thinking about how do I work forever. I'm thinking about, I'm getting ready to have grandchildren. So I'm 2 and I'm sitting here thinking, how do I want to participate in their life, right? What might that look like? What is the strategy for my life? And one of the things that I've now been thinking about this year with intentionality is what are the habits that are necessary for that person? So what are the habits that are going to make me successful in my business or as a grandparent or as a mom or a wife or a sister or a friend or whatever role I want to play?
Yeah.
And so it's stacking good habits, whether it's in the business by monitoring financials or monitoring our marketing or monitoring our client, happiness or whatever it is. It's how do we stack and create habits so that daily doing just a little bit, it gets us to where we want to be. We can't just get there at the end without daily, monthly, weekly doing all the work to get there. So how do we stack that up?
Yeah, that's 100%. a great thing to think about. And that book is definitely almost a life-changing book. Like once you read it, you can't
Yes.
unknow that information. So,
Good old James Clear.
I
Yeah.
know.
I read that in 19 and it rattled me. I'm not going to lie. It rattled me because it really makes you stop and ask the question, how do you see yourself? How have you defined yourself?
Hmm.
And I started recognizing, I'll use myself as an example, even self-limiting beliefs.
Hmm.
Like, oh, wow, I didn't believe that I was this, therefore I didn't act like that. And what am I acting like? And is it in alignment again with what I want to be or who I want to be or how I want to show up in the world? And it's one of those ownership pieces. Like you said, once you read it, you actually now are taking ownership for the habits that you're doing or not doing or
Yeah.
need to remove because they're not helping you become the next version of who you are becoming.
100%. And that's all wrapped up in having a growth mindset and really trying to improve yourself and your business like throughout life. So that's just, I mean, that's why we're
Yeah,
here. That's
because
why.
that's right. Those things come out of us building ourselves.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's why we have podcasts and everything, because we're helping others to grow and learn because we want to share the things that we've discovered ourselves. Yeah. And I wanted to touch on too that I love that you are Profit First certified because that is one of the books that I recommend to all the people going through my program that they read about Profit First and understand how to, first of all, pay themselves, which was, again, something I was guilty of early on, not doing. But then how to manage your money so that, because interior designers manage a lot of money.
Mhm.
There's other people's money. And it's coming through the business and understanding that like if you have it all in one bucket, you really just don't know what's happening with that. Like what are retainers, what are the cost of goods and what do you need to pay your vendors and what do you pay your employees and all that stuff. And so I think Profit First is really a great tool for that. Do you go through that with the people who go through your program as well?
I do. So I've been profit certified since 2015. I found the book right out of the gate. I think it came out in 14 or something like that. And I called them and I was like, I'm teaching this in my pricing without emotion and understanding if I'm teaching a version of this. Tell me more about what you're doing
Mm-hmm.
because I'm either going to compete with you or join you.
Mm-hmm.
So then I was like learning what they were doing. I was like, all right, I could totally get behind that. It was so natural to me because see, I've been burned where I didn't have the money to pay the taxes because I brought too much home. I've been burned because I didn't pay myself enough. I've been burned because I didn't have enough to put back into the company for the growth and the things I wanted to do. I'd already been through all of those burns. That's why I had built in safeguards and multiple accounts and all those things already. So that when I read the book, I was like, ding, 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 this makes so much sense, right? The one thing I will say about the book itself, it's an amazing book, and I recommend everybody either listen to it on Audible. Mike's hysterical, so you can
Yeah.
listen to it, or you get the book to read it. But I want to caution everybody, it is not a direct correlation to how you put money into accounts for the interior design industry.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where I have the Master Your Profit course. I mean, I'll tell everybody the answer, but that's where we actually work through it.
Okay.
And what it comes down to is what is your strategy for recognizing revenue? Because there are multiple points that some recognize revenue the minute they get paid, some recognize revenue on a product when they place the purchase order or create the
Mm-hmm.
purchase order and send it to the vendor. Some recognize revenue when it ships from the vendor to the warehouse. Some recognize revenue when it lands at the warehouse.
Mm-hmm.
Some recognize revenue when they've installed it. So
Yeah.
there are multiple points all along this cycle where you get to indicate that I have closed the sales process, if you will, so that I can recognize the revenue and therefore the resulting profit.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That also feeds into how you pay sales tax and what time of the year and where it goes. There's a bigger conversation around that.
Yeah.
But if people don't understand that conversation, they can get in trouble with just trying to do an out of the box approach to Profit First.
Mm.
Profit First is meant to allow you to save money in buckets, in bank accounts, so that it can be preserved for the job that it is supposed to be doing. Therefore, you have like in the basics, you have like your operating expenses, you're going to have a profit account, which is company profit, an owner's draw or owner's pay account, owner's benefit. You're going to have one for taxes. So you have these basic accounts where you're saying, I'm going to put this money over here because it really goes to the government. I don't accidentally spend it. I'm going to put this money down here so I have profit that stays in the company, or it can be used for bonuses or whatever, so I don't accidentally spend it. I'm going to take this money and put it down here because I'm going to have to buy new inventory to go on the shelves and I got to do inventory replacement. I want to pay additional 401k or bonuses or whatever at the end of the year. I'm going to save money here. So it's a process that helps you put money and hold it out. It's kind of like the envelope system. Or like if you were to go to the grocery store and you've got a little thing with coupons and you've got them all separated out for the aisle that you're going to, it's just a separation. It's all still there, but it's allocated in a way that makes sense. And there's a strategy that goes with that. And that strategy, that financial profit first strategy, aligns with your strategic plan. Like if I'm not trying to buy a building and grow anymore and do anything, I'm going to take more profit out of the company. If I'm trying to grow and build and do, I'm going to leave more profit in. So there are levers that get pushed and pulled based on the overall strategy of the company itself. And so we teach that in my Designers Inner Circle, and then I teach it as a standalone education course, so people can buy it just as a course. Yep. I'll be offering it as a coached course at some point next year. But I would say for anybody who's looking at an implementation, and even if they're trying to do it by themselves, to really start with strategy. Where do I recognize revenue? How do I separate the money? When is the money mine so that it comes in? Also asking the question, where do I have sloppy financial practices? Like if Miss Smith is paying me $2,000 for a sofa that I'm going to buy for $1,000, do I go ahead and put all that money in and pay the Amex from last month and hope that the next sale I'm going to have the money to buy the $1,000 sofa from the vendor? That's a sloppy business practice. And that sloppy business practice, it screws up a whole profit first scenario. So there are multiple layers to implementing it. It is a simple system to understand and it makes sense, but it's not as easy to implement if you don't understand how money flows through your company.
Yeah, and that's true. And I'm glad you brought that up, and that you actually have a course that helps adapt that strategy to interior design business, because my bookkeeper and I did modify a lot of things quite a bit to like make sure it was working for the way that I recognize income and all that stuff. So that you mentioned. So yes, that's a good caveat on that. So yeah.
I always say it's a money management system, and I'm not a purist. So in other words, I understand the heart of what it's doing, but our businesses might, like if I recognize revenue at point A and you don't recognize it at point C, if we're trying to allocate money the same way with all the same things, one of us is going to be in trouble.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. We're gonna use money for the wrong things.
Right.
So we have to really understand what we're doing. And then you're just modifying it. And the end result's the same thing. Rebecca's got the money in the account that it needs to be in when she needs it. That's the end result that we're working towards.
Yeah. Yeah. What I do love is that it does show you where your sloppy tactics are, because like before it'd be like, okay, this was a little nebulous. Like I didn't really have a good system. And so it was definitely helpful to set up more restricted areas that I'm not touching this money for taxes, and just like, keeping it out. So, yeah.
It actually feels better to me. Yes, it's restrictive, but it's restrictive for our own good.
Exactly.
So we think about it as like putting up guardrails. What you're doing is putting up guardrails so you don't go off the edge.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because going off the edge, it looks beautiful down there, but I don't want to free fall down there. I want to drive down, right? And what we're really doing is just protecting ourselves from going off an edge that we've defined. That's what I love about it too. We define that.
Yeah.
Some people are like, I'm so afraid. And I'm like, I don't know what you're afraid of. The money's still yours. It's still there. It's still in the bank. You can still get to it. The biggest fear to me is leaving all the money in one big lump sum and not being clear on what that money is supposed to do. I'll give you a prime example. When my son was younger, he was probably late middle school, and he was getting maybe early high school, and he had X number of dollars in his bank account. He'd gotten some money for his birthday. I remember us going out to dinner, and he gave me a long list of all the things he was going to buy, whole lot more than the money that he had. Do you know what I mean? It's like, I got $100 and that's $200. And so he started showing us all the things he was going to do with that money. And we sat down and said, start adding it up. And when he added it up, he realized this is like 200 and this is 100. This is not going to work. So then we said, all right, now go back. You have $100 to spend. What's coming off the list? What are you removing? And he was astounded at how many, like, what is most important? Put that in first. And then, so he started learning priority. He started learning how far the money would go. Again, we do this with our client money if we're handling it well. We just somehow let go of doing it for our own company financials.
Well, so great that you can stand in the middle and bridge that gap of helping designers just apply things that they're already doing and know how to do into their financials in their business. So that's wonderful, Michelle. Thank you. Any other advice for people who are curious about the career or about starting their business and just really maybe shy about their financial side of it?
Yeah, I always call it the underwear drawer of the business that people don't want to open. I guess I would say this. If I know that maybe perhaps many of your listeners are newer in business or newer in getting started. The first thing I want to say is you're not going to have it all figured out when you start. Even though I'm over here talking strategy and profitability and numbers, you're not going to. I've been in business for myself 25 years. I still don't have it all figured out. I'm a learner. And so don't let that hold you back. The second thing I would say is, what is it when you know more, you do more, or when you know better, you do better?
Yeah.
Now that you have heard about a strategic plan, just start with what you know. You can Google strategic plans and get plenty of ideas out there. There's even one-pagers. You just start writing down, here's what I want to try to do this year. Just getting into the habit of asking yourself and dreaming. Again, it's no different. Apply the same kindness to yourself that you would apply to a new client when you said, tell me what you want for your house. Tell me how you want the house to feel. Tell me what you want to be able to do in these rooms. Who spends time here? How do they function in this room? The same types of questions, you're just going to ask it to yourself. So the more that you can realize you're not going to know everything, start with what you've been told or know and what you now know that you could be accountable to. And then just start dreaming and writing it down. You can always go back and look at it and pull it back a little bit. But I think we've gotten, especially as we age, we get out of that habit of dreaming. We do more of just what's in front of us, function with what's in front of us. And this is a plan, an opportunity to write things down, to dream bigger, to move forward. And then we can put it into place and align the financials and align the marketing and align the team. We can do all that. But it starts somewhere with somebody having a dream of wanting to work or to put something out into the world that they believe is missing or a hole that they're trying to fill. So I would say be curious and dig into that a little bit.
Great. And a perfect time of year to do it as we're approaching the new year. So, well, thank you, Michelle. And so we'll put your information in the show notes so people can reach out to you. Where do you spend most time? Are you on Instagram a lot or?
I would say, yeah, we hang out on Instagram a lot, which is Scarlet Thread ATL and Metrik Solutions. If you go to my Scarlet Thread Consulting website, we should have a wait list up if it hasn't already opened, where we're going to be doing a course in January and February on how to build a strategic plan. So if anybody's thinking, I don't want to do this by myself and I'm not ready for a huge coaching program, I just want to take a course and have somebody walk us through this, that's a perfect course for that.
Perfect.
But otherwise, I'm on Facebook a little bit, mostly Instagram though, and LinkedIn.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much for coming on today, Michelle. It's great talking with you.
Thank you, Rebecca. And thank you for what you're doing in the industry, helping people understand how to get started and what it looks like and here are the pitfalls and here are the things I ran into, avoid this, take that detour, don't take that one. It's your voice is really needed and I'm appreciative of what you add to the industry.
Oh, thank you so much. Well,
You're
same
welcome.
for you. Yeah. All right. Well, we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks. Talk to you soon.
So I don't know about you, but I've gained a lot by learning from Michelle today. I especially love all she had to say about strategic planning, and I'm definitely going to take a look at my own documents internally and start working on my strategic plan as we approach the new year. So we have put all of her contact information in the show notes, so you can reach out to Michelle with taking the course or getting some coaching or mentoring for your financials. If that's something that you're needing, I would definitely reach out to her. Okay, that's it for me today. I hope you guys have a great Thanksgiving if you're celebrating in the US, and until next week, stay creative. Thanks for listening. If you love this episode, please leave a rating and a review. This helps me reach other curious creatives like you. If you have a topic request or would like to contact me, simply head over to my website, rwarddesign.com, or email me at podcast@rwarddesign.com.